Imagine for a moment a home, not just four walls and a roof, but a place of safety, predictability, a launch pad for your day. Now, imagine that stability is suddenly gone. The ground beneath you feels shaky, uncertain. We often talk about crime and public safety in terms of laws, policing, and justice. But what if one of the most powerful tools for fostering a safer society isn't found in a courtroom, but in a stable home? Today, we're going to explore a topic that's both deeply personal and profoundly societal: the compelling evidence behind the connection between housing stability and crime. It's a relationship far more intricate than many realize, one that shapes individual lives and entire communities. For years, research has shown us that where we live and how securely we live there plays a foundational role in so many aspects of our well-being, and public safety is no exception. At its heart, this connection isn't about simple cause and effect, but a complex, interwoven dance. We see a powerful, often heartbreaking cycle. Housing insecurity can increase involvement with the criminal justice system, and once someone is in that system, obtaining stable housing becomes incredibly difficult, often perpetuating the cycle. Think of housing as a cornerstone. When that cornerstone is shaky, the whole structure becomes vulnerable. When it's strong, the entire building feels more secure and resilient. Let's break down some of the key ways this relationship manifests, starting with individuals. One of the clearest examples is the journey of someone returning to society after incarceration. Stable housing isn't just nice to have for them, it's absolutely critical. Without a safe, consistent place to live, it becomes a monumental struggle to find a job, access healthcare, or even comply with parole conditions. This lack of a stable base dramatically increases the likelihood of reoffending, trapping individuals in a revolving door of the justice system. Then there's the harsh reality of homelessness. We often see a strong, direct link between experiencing homelessness and involvement with the criminal justice system. Sadly, individuals who are unhoused are often vulnerable, both as victims and sometimes as perpetrators. Many find themselves arrested for what researchers call survival crimes or nuisance crimes, acts like sleeping in public, loitering, or panhandling. These aren't inherently violent acts, but they criminalize the very act of existing without a home, pushing vulnerable people deeper into the system. Beyond direct criminal justice involvement, housing stability is also a fundamental social determinant of health. This is a concept we discuss often: how factors like income, education, and housing deeply impact our overall health and well-being. When housing is unstable, it can degrade physical, mental, and behavioral health. This isn't to say instability causes crime directly, but it can contribute to a heightened state of stress, anxiety, or despair that for some may elevate the risk of engaging in criminal activity as a coping mechanism. Now, let's zoom out to the community level. In neighborhoods with high housing turnover or significant instability, social ties can weaken. Think about it. If people are constantly moving in and out, it's harder to build that sense of community, of shared responsibility, or to organize for collective action. When those community bonds fray, it can create an environment where crime rates might increase, simply because the informal social control, the eyes on the street we often talk about, become less present. To help us understand these dynamics, various criminological theories offer insights. One is the general strain theory. In simple terms, this theory suggests that negative emotional states, like anger, frustration, or resentment, which can certainly stem from the constant stress of housing instability, might make individuals, particularly those formerly incarcerated, more susceptible to criminal behavior. Another theory, one that has generated significant discussion, is the broken windows theory. While debated and often misapplied, it essentially posits that visible signs of disorder in a neighborhood, like broken windows, litter, or graffiti, can signal that no one cares, potentially encouraging more serious crime. The idea here, if we apply it to our topic, is that improving overall neighborhood conditions, including housing and its surroundings, could help reduce certain types of minor crimes. It's not without controversy, and we must be careful not to criminalize poverty, but the core idea of reducing visible disorder as a public good has some merit. Now, this brings us to some important debates and nuances in this field. A central question is always, is it causation or correlation? Does housing instability directly cause crime, or are both symptoms of deeper socioeconomic issues? The answer is often both. It's certainly an oversimplification to equate homelessness equals crime, and such narratives can be harmful. Instead, we need to recognize the vulnerability and systemic pressures that can lead to both. The broken windows theory, for instance, and its application in zero-tolerance policing, has faced valid criticism. While intending to reduce minor crime, such approaches have been scrutinized for racial and class bias, disproportionately impacting vulnerable communities, without necessarily reducing serious crime effectively. Another significant debate involves the prioritization of housing for justice-involved individuals. In a time of housing shortages, questions arise about resource allocation and public safety perceptions. However, the evidence is strong. Providing stable housing demonstratively reduces reoffending, ultimately making communities safer. Denying housing based on a criminal record often perpetuates the very cycle we are trying to break. This links directly to barriers in housing assistance. Eligibility criteria and policies that allow eviction for minor infractions can ironically undermine efforts to reduce crime. There's also a persistent public misconception that affordable housing development increases crime rates in surrounding neighborhoods. This is a notion generally refuted by research, which often shows the opposite effect or no effect at all. Well-planned affordable housing can actually strengthen communities, not weaken them. And finally, the criminalization of homelessness itself is a deeply controversial issue. Laws penalizing basic survival activities for people experiencing homelessness are increasingly criticized for disproportionately impacting vulnerable populations and diverting resources from real housing-focused solutions towards punitive measures. So, what does all this evidence point to? The overwhelming conclusion from research is clear. Stable housing significantly reduces reoffending rates among justice-involved individuals, and it strengthens community well-being overall. The criminal justice system, paradoxically, often creates significant barriers to housing, particularly for people of color, intensifying these challenges.
Organizations like the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, research bodies like the Urban Institute, and advocacy groups such as the Fortune Society are actively working to address these intersections. There's a growing understanding that housing isn't just a social service, it's a core public safety intervention. The future outlook in this field involves a continued effort to untangle these complex links, moving beyond simple correlations to identify what truly causes change. We're seeing a trend towards housing-first strategies, which prioritize providing immediate stable housing without preconditions, coupled with supportive services. This approach has proven highly effective, particularly for individuals experiencing chronic homelessness or mental health challenges, often leading to better health outcomes and reduced interactions with the justice system. There will be ongoing work to refine housing policies, particularly concerning justice-involved individuals and those experiencing homelessness. Expect continued debates on resource allocation and the efficacy of various housing models, but the overarching trend is towards addressing systemic barriers to housing for vulnerable populations. Understanding the powerful connection between housing stability and crime allows us to think differently about public safety. It moves us beyond simplistic answers and towards more humane, evidence-based solutions. It reminds us that when we invest in stable homes, we're not just providing shelter, we're investing in individual well-being, community resilience, and ultimately a safer, more stable society for everyone. It's a testament to the idea that true security often begins with a place to call home.